This is a video for Mars in the 10th house Synastry overlay. This is an interesting placement. With this placement, I've noticed a lot of astrologers, obviously we want to emphasize, the good, but we also want to take the whole viewpoint of everything when it comes to this placement. Obviously there's so many different ways that it can play out, and depending on your other overlays, your aspects, your individual natal charts, it's all going to make a difference to how this plays out for you. It's definitely worth noting that these two together put sex on other people's minds, so you guys can look like a sexy couple. People are interested in you because you're with this person. You look more sexy, more desirable in the presence of this other person. So you could definitely have that could be the Mars person or the 10th house person. You could definitely have a rise in your overall sex appeal in this connection. And you guys could come together because of sexual attraction. That's very, very likely. That's probably like 90% likely. There's a strong sexual attraction. You can meet in a public place, a place where there's a lot of people. There could actually be a lot of eyes on you when you actually meet, because it's very likely you could meet in a public place as well. Mars could definitely show you the first meeting. On the flip side, one thing I have noticed and seen, and other astrologers have picked up on this as well, is that Mars in the 10th house overlay can sometimes cause one person, maybe both, but I feel like it can usually be the 10th house person, to be embarrassed of the other person, or something they do really annoys them. But it's in regards to how they act out in public. So it could be like, gosh, this guy, he's so embarrassing. Like, why does he do this? Could be the person wants to fight with people. They want to argue. They're loud. They're flirty. It could just be anything. It's never really anything to do with the way they look or physically show up. It's more to do with the way that they represent themselves and therefore represent you. That is annoying, and it's just not to your standard in some way, shape or form. Because remember, the 10th house has curated this image of themselves. They, know how to present themselves to the public, whereas the Mars person is just being the rawest form of themselves, because that's really whatever placement this is in, whatever sign this is in, this is really who the Mars person actually is. It's their Mars, their first house, their first will. They can act quite impulsively in a really unrefined manner. And a 10th house person will have the same energy, but it will be in a more refined way. And they know how to display it to the public in a way that's more palatable. And it can just kind of leave a bad taste in the 10th house person's mouth. We're not talking about that actual first house, because there could be something completely different in their first house. But because Mars is always going to be relevant in people's charts, especially in, Mars and 10th house overlay, because it is the planetary energy or the energetic body that is giving the first house power. So that raw point of their chart, and when I say raw, I'm not talking about like Pluto raw, even though Mars does represent Scorpio. I'm not talking about Scorpio raw or Pluto raw. I'm talking about, this is just who I am. This is just how I am. This is my reaction. I can't fake it. So it could be really annoying to the 10th house person, because this person just may say things or just do things, and you're just like, why would you do that? Again, they are just genuinely being themselves. Whereas the 10th house is a bit more curated. This is something you've developed over time, and with age, your public persona, your reputation, this is something that you have curated and grown for yourself. And this person just kind of comes in, steamrolling in with all these really primal, instinctive, foot in the mouth kind of energy. And you're just like, cringing. You're just like, Please stop. Can you just not do that? Now, this can actually cause some competition and some jealousy between the two of you, as much as it can definitely cause attraction, because the Mars person is actually the real deal when it comes to whatever energy is actually in this house, because it's their first house, it's their first will. You know, when I say the first will, I mean, I've mentioned this before, maybe in other videos on this channel or not, I don't know, but it's basically the will to survive. So that identity and that belief of who they think they are is going to keep them going. It's their motivation, it's their point of reference for like everything. So you come in your 10th house way, like, yeah, okay, I get where you're coming from, but this is how you actually present this energy to the public. And you could be getting all these accolades and all this recognition for, you know, whatever sign is in the 10th house. But the Mars person's like, hey, I'm the real deal. This person isn't the real deal. They're like putting on an act for the public. That's not really who they are. Now, if you have other planets in the 10th house, it will obviously change that energy a little bit, and it could be a little bit of an ego battle between you guys. Say you've got Sun in the 10th house and they've got their Mars in your 10th house, and even worse, they got Mars in the first house in your 10th house. This is going to turn into like a big old ego battle, because both of you could be looking at each other like, well, I'm the real deal. No, I'm the real deal. So yeah, it can get interesting there. But what people are going to see when they look at you, firstly, you are going to have eyes on you as a couple. People may say, oh, you guys look good together. You may actually hear this, and it's not in like a Venetian way of you guys look good together, like there's so much love. It's like sexy vibes. It's like you guys actually look good together. People are interested in what is happening in you guys' relationship. Like, what's happening in the bedroom? Why are you guys arguing? What is it that you're arguing about? Like, what are you guys into? It's really a funny one because, as I said, public persona, how we interact with the public, it really does come through here, even if you don't have mutuals or anything like that. So this is a placement where there could be public displays of attraction more than affection. I say PDA, but not affection, it's attraction that goes on here. And, you know, other people may really be attracted to you guys as a couple, but you could also attract jealousy as a couple. Yeah, you could actually attract jealousy, or, you know, like if you go out and you're on a evening out or whatever, you're in a place where people are drinking, you two as a couple could attract an annoying drunk who's single, and they're just there just like talking rubbish, and somehow there's some kind of Martian energy, so some sort of anger or attraction that they display towards maybe one of you or maybe both of you. Who knows? People will be doing some weird stuff. There is a very direct interest in your motivations as a couple. Okay, so another thing that can happen here is that the Mars person can put the 10th house person on a pedestal, but they can swing between kind of hating or devaluing the Mars person, devaluing the 10th house person, and then pedestalizing them. Because the 10th house is older, wiser, more refined, knows more about the world, knows more how to present themselves, the Mars person really looks up to this refined version of the energy that they naturally have, that they naturally are, should I say, and how the 10th house person displays this. But this can, again, be a source of annoyance because, again, the Mars person is like, but I'm the real deal. I'm the raw version of this energy. So it can be annoying. That's why they can swing from going to like, oh, the 10th house person is so perfect, and then, oh, I can't stand the 10th house person. even if you don't have mutual friends, you may find that you end up talking about this person to other people. So other people somehow hear about this relationship. Or like I said, if you go out in public, it's not going to be, even if it's to the shop, people are going to notice you guys together. A thing that I have seen here as well is that sometimes the Mars person can leave the 10th house person for somebody they see as less than. So it can be like this 10th house person's too mature, the 10th house person's too wise, the 10th house person's too much in some way, too controlling or too controlled or whatever. It's interesting because Saturn actually rules restriction, but the fact that this person is too much in some way is actually making the Mars person feel restricted. So they may go for somebody who they deem as less good looking, as making less money, as less talented, as less hard work, as less, whatever, because that's in a position where they're more comfortable, because it can often feel like they're looking up to the 10th house person or they're reaching up. And like I said, there can be something about the Mars person, again, flip it to whatever way it goes in your connection or how you've seen it, but there can be something about the 10th house, there can be something about the Mars person that is embarrassing for the 10th house person. Whether the Mars person knows that they are some sort of source of embarrassment, it's like the Mars person knows that they can't reach that certain standard that the 10th house person naturally holds. So it becomes a point of stress for them. So yeah, they can oftentimes leave this relationship and the relationship can end really quite suddenly. Even sometimes if the 10th house person thinks that they're going to keep going back and forth or they're going to be together forever, it can just actually really end quite abruptly because of the fact that it's Mars. So that can happen really quickly. But they may just leave and go with somebody who is just not, without being mean, but just not in the same league as the 10th house person. Just simply because it's easier and they don't feel so stressed or so pushed to grow. And I will go into more of how it can really impact the Mars person, and they can feel less than a lot of times just by the 10th house person being themselves. And even if they're not being nasty or making it clear that, or not even making it clear or highlighting the fact that they're not on the same level in some way, or they're slightly embarrassed by this person, or this person makes them mad by how they act, or, it doesn't have to be just like pure embarrassment. It could be like annoyance, like, oh, why do you do this? But also it could be attraction. It could be like, oh, I find it so sexy when you do this in public, or how you act, how you talk. There's a few different ways that this could actually play out. Well, obviously I've still got a cold, so I still sound terrible, but I apologise if the sound has changed at all. But yeah, so Mars is one of those ones where this person could make a quick decision to cut you off. And the 10th house person may see this Mars person as being in their life for a long time and, expecting them to go on and play this dynamic out. There could be some stops and starts in this relationship. It could be really intense, really full force, and then some sort of restriction, some sort of period of not seeing each other, or that can definitely happen as well. But I feel like it's usually, when it ends, it really will end quite suddenly, and you'll never be seen in public with each other again. But people may still talk about it, be like, oh, remember that time when you was dating this? But it will be funny because you could have dated people who were so much more relevant to you in your story and your life in general, but people will still remember your connection or your relationship with this person. Even if you try and keep it low, the chances are people are going to know about this connection. And that's even if you don't have mutuals. Maybe you'll just get annoyed and be like, do you know what? The Mars person is winding me up, or the 10th house person, I'm tired of them. Because again, not only is Mars about like your ego and sex and motivation, but it's about expression. The first wheel is really about expressing what you actually are. So you're going to want to express how you feel about this person. So you can have some pretty decent sex here. Remember, it's the 10th house as well. So it may feel like you are holding back a little bit. I wouldn't say you're going to have like the big O. Mars in the 10th house doesn't give me, oh my gosh, you know, it was amazing, legs shaking. But it's like, it was decent. It got the job done. There may also be that feeling, even when it is just you two alone in the bedroom, of how another person is supposed to act or how you're supposed to act in regards to this person. So, you know, if you like something or you're into you like to have sex in a specific way, you may not want to express that with this person. It may feel just like not the right vibe, not the right person for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do think it has its pros, it has its cons. But Mars in the 10th house is an interesting one because I just think there's so many layers to it. And I think it's really for the Mars person, if they are, you know, I don't want to say intuitive, if they're aware, they will learn a lot about themselves through this connection, through interacting with this 10th house person about who they are, how they want to be seen, but also about their needs. Because remember, Mars is the first wheel, and the first wheel needs something to sustain itself, which is usually whatever's in the second house. Otherwise, you know, the second house feeds the first house. So they may actually end up focusing on their finances, on their morals and values, from dealing with this person. And this person can sometimes become a bit of a bad guy. From the Mars person's perspective, this person could, the 10th house person could be like a restrictive, cold, tyrant person who has loads of rules and regulations. You know, when a man complains that a woman's strict, that is strict over there, this is that kind of energy, like she's so strict. Maybe the Mars person has never really had to worry about money or providing or anything like that, and they meet this 10th house princess who comes around and they're like, shit, I can't afford her. Even though, like I said, it's Mars, it's the first house. They're learning a lot about what keeps that fire burning for them. So it will go into their second house on an internal level for them personally. It may not have, the relationship itself may not, the 10th house may not be asking them for anything. They may not be asking for money, but these are questions within this person, within the Mars person, that may very well be raised. And it could also be, like I said, my morals and values. Is this person even in alignment with my morals and values? Do they believe what I believe? I feel like it's definitely more transformative on the Mars person's end than the 10th house person, because the 10th house person may just look back at this like, oh yeah, I remember that person, that was a crazy time, and just keep it moving. But the Mars person would be like, yeah, I remember that person. They made me feel so broke, and I just felt like I wasn't good enough for them. And actually, you know what? I don't even know if I was that attractive at that time, or I don't even know if they were really that pretty as much as I held them up to be. Like, it will stumble into the second house. It could also be that at some point, the Mars person, when I say about morals and values as well, the Mars person is like, does the 10th house person align with my morals and values? Because Taurus was the wife, you know, the second house, that's really actually Taurus's domain, Venus, but Taurus was the Jupiter's most beautiful wife. So it could be that on that outlook, this person triggers something in the Mars person about finding the right partner for them, finding a wife or a husband that's going to be really, especially if it's a man, finding a wife or finding a person, a man that dates women, obviously, or even, do you know what, feminines, finding somebody who embodies the right feminine energy for them. And usually, I'll be so real, for a masculine man, the right feminine energy isn't one that makes you have to compete, or not makes you have to compete, that makes you feel as though you have to compete at being what you already are. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Mars in the 10th house. It's an interesting one. I'll just put it like that. So I have mentioned how some of these energies can play out in a more negative way. But with Mars in the 10th house, yes, you can definitely have that power couple dynamic here, because as I mentioned, a lot of it is about how the Mars person wants to be perceived in public via the 10th house person. So it's, how do I look when I'm with this person? How do I look through the lens of this person's followers, friends, family? So if that Mars person feels that they have a bad reputation when they're with the 10th house person, that's what's going to cause them to pull away. And it doesn't have to be that, you know, this Mars person feels, even though oftentimes, like I said, they can often feel kind of victimized by the 10th house person in some way if their reputation is negative. It can be that the Mars person is actually actively doing things, and it may be things that they don't do anywhere else with anyone else that causes them to have a bad reputation with the 10th house person. It may not be that the 10th house person actually has a bad reputation, although it can be that as well. They just may want to be seen in a more, you know, great light. If they look like they're a cheater when they're out with the 10th house person, but they want to be seen as a faithful and loving husband, they're going to go elsewhere. But when this is good, it's great, because if you want to be seen as, you know, like a go-getter, somebody who goes after all your dreams, very sexy, very motivated, and you're with the 10th house person and that's how people are seeing you when you're together, then that's fantastic. That's going to add a lot to the relationship. That's going to add to the desirability of the Mars person from other people, how they are viewed with other people, but also they're going to be more into the 10th house person because the 10th house person is desirable for them because they have this glow, halo glow, you know, what's it, halo glow? They share their glow with the Mars person. Also, again, don't hate to be the negative Nelly, but I just, you know, I just realised something when I heard what I said. The Mars person can actually suddenly have a rise in popularity being around a 10th house person. Now, if they are a cheater, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the term of like a person dating you so they can have more access to women or men like you, or they can have just more access in general to men and women even though they're meant to be dating you. That can also happen here because the 10th house person will increase the Mars person's desirability and visibility, and they'll be seen as more sexy, strong. All those really masculine traits that, you know, some women are very into can definitely seem more obvious here. If it is a good one and both parties are comfortable with the energy, so their natal charts receive this energy well, so it plays out well between them, there is the potential here for a lot of longevity in this connection because it is the 10th house. So this could be a relationship where you guys are together for a long time. This is a couple that does active things together, that, you know, may just do spontaneous trips, may spontaneously start something that lasts a long time. So they could start a relationship, one night stand, and be together for the next 15-20 years. They could, you know, start a project that lasts a very long time. Obviously all aspects and placements and stuff considered, but there is a lot that can play out here. So I wouldn't say this is, you know how people are looking for like this perfect overlay sometimes, or I feel like overlays and aspects can be really romanced. I feel like this is a nice one to have in there. with the rest of your aspects, because it can really actually enhance them. It can, you know, if somebody's around you and they feel sexy when they're around you, they're going to want to be around you. They feel desirable. If they feel powerful, if they feel their true self, that they can be authentically themselves around you, they feel like they're operating from like the rawest part of themselves, or, you know, they feel like they're showing the rawest part of themselves, and it's accepted and even refined a little bit, because the 10th house is going to refine that raw point with the Mars energy. They are going to want to be around you. So it could also be a situation where this Mars person wants to be in your face every day. Like, they want to see you all the time. And the 10th house person may have responsibilities and obligations and whatnot. But if you do have this aspect, having a responsibility and an obligation with this person will strengthen this. Like I said, it can be one of those one night stands turns into marriage, turns into a love of a lifetime. Even if it's something as small as, I don't want to like make life seem small, but I was going to say like getting a goldfish together or something, you know, something that you guys have invested in together. And obviously you don't want to just like throw crazy responsibility on somebody, or you don't really want to get yourself involved in something too crazy, but then it could happen here. It really could happen. That could also be something that encourages the Mars person to keep their reputation clean, because they don't want to be associated with anything negative because of the longevity of whatever it is that this project or whatever it is that you guys have got going on. So if the Mars person so say you guys get married, the Mars person may not want to cheat, or they're going to keep their cheating very, very, very low and not obvious, because they are not going to want to mess up the reputation of themselves, because they are thinking about themselves. It's Mars, like in regards to being a wife or a husband, and they're not going to want to mess up the reputation of the person that they're with. Not because they really, not even like they don't care, but not because, oh, I'd never do anything to hurt her. They don't want people to think, oh yeah, the Mars person is with some idiot that just lets me cheat on them all the time. No, they want people to respect you, because when people respect the 10th house, because when people respect the 10th house, they respect them. So they want some of that. I want to say the term is afterglow, but they want some of that, you know, so they will try and keep that clean. So yeah, it's so interesting, because there's so many ways that this can actually play out. It can really enhance the relationship, or it can be a really annoying one.